Live better and longer with the Fitzness Show, hosted by fitness expert, author, and TV personality Fitz. She'll tell you why diets are dumb, supplements are snake oil, and the truth about how you can earn a lean, hard, pain-free, and athletic body. Now for our favorite bossy blonde, Fitz.
Hi team, I'm Fitz, your very noisy race announcer from Fitzness.com, and welcome to the Fitzness Show. Today we are going to recap the Essential Health Fargo Marathon weekend, which was spectacular. Absolutely freaking spectacular. So if you were a part of it, you know, and you're going to hear a lot of things that you already know, or my version of it at least. And if you've never been to the Fargo Marathon weekend, well, come on. What have you been waiting for? This is stupid. This is really stupid. I don't want you to live with regret, but damn it, you should have regret right now and remorse and guilt, perhaps, because you would have made me happier if you would have shown up. And so next year, plan for 2026. I don't have a contract yet. I'm not sure if they're bringing me back. I hope they do, but I've been there for quite a while. And yeah, hopefully we'll all be back in Fargo next year, right? Okay, so if you haven't done so yet, hit subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts so then you can be notified when my big noisy mouth appears and you can listen to future shows. Next up, we've got another Q&A. So please send your Qs so I can that's right, go to my Instagram page, Fitzness, or go to fitzness.com, leave your Qs, and I promise to them. That's right. I am dumbing down my language. So yeah, Q's and A's. Why say question? Why say answer when you can just say Q or A? Also voice. I'm doing the best. I'm doing the best I can. I really wanted to record this podcast on Monday or Tuesday, but I sounded like Cookie Monster once again, and that's not really good podcast etiquette to show up sounding like Cookie Monster. Also, I don't want people to think that's my real voice, right? What if somebody needs a narrator for their Discovery Channel show and they're thinking Fitz might be the narrator, and then they hear me and they go, no, Fitz Cookie Monster, we can't do that. Or you're just a regular person who doesn't need a narrator, and then you just are grossed out by my cookie voice. So although Cookie Monster's adorable, let's be real, the voice really works on him, not so much on me. Although my jacket kind of makes me look like Cookie Monster. Anywho, okay, so we're going to start with Fargo. Now, I want to tell you that I have a long history of Fargo. I've been there since I think 2021. Mark Knudsen, the late great race director, dear friend of mine, he brought me in, which I love. I was so happy. I was already announcing the DC Wonder Woman runs and Batman for him, and thankfully, after the COVID nonsense was over, he brought me into Fargo. So I just have such a great connection with that community. I feel I have so many friends there. You know, Fargo itself is a very tight-knit, sweet community. You know, the biggest dang on Fargo that people make fun of them about is because they're so nice. They're so sweet. They're quite passive and friendly and not aggressive. Maybe not like some of the other cities in America or England or Europe or whatever, right? Fargo has a very kind culture and I love it, but I've been able to make some wonderful connections there. So before, and I'm going to tell you all of this from my point of view, right? I can't give you all the race director info or all of the other runner info, but I'm going to tell you about my weekend because it was pretty grand and crazy fun, and we had some good times. So I'm gonna tell you all about that. But so I have some friendly friends, and Froda, who's also one of my hotties from my Hottie Body Fitzness Challenge. If you're not a part of that group on Facebook, you should be because it's freaking awesome. And I and the group will help you get fit. Anyways, Froda, he's always posting photos from his run club, and the runners they always look like they're having so much fun, and there's so many of them, and they run and then they go have beer. And I was like, gosh, I want to do that. So I reached out to Froda before the Fargo Marathon weekend. I just said, hey, can I join you? That was it. I just really wanted to join them on their run and beer drinking evening. And pretty soon after, Froda says, yes, I've made an event. And he made an event. It was come have beer and run with Fitz. And then he says, I have a PA for you, which I hadn't expected, but I thought, okay, well, this just got cranked up a notch, but that's fine too. And really excited about it. And I have to get to Fargo on Thursday, even though our first event isn't until Friday, but I can't leave on Friday morning. If there's any travel issues, then I would miss the 5K. And I have to take 3 flights to get there. It's Gainesville to Atlanta to Minneapolis to Fargo. So anyway, I'm in there Thursday and I didn't know who was going to come. I didn't know if anybody wanted to come have beer or run with me. Does anyone give a rat's ass? Who knows? But apparently they did. So Froda picked me up at my hotel and brought me over to Bison Turf. It's a really cool sports bar, and they let us have the top floor. And I would say we had about 50 people there, 50 runners. And again, they were all so kind. Some I already knew and a bunch of new friends. But we went running. There was a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4-mile loop because nobody wanted to run too far before the marathon weekend. And I chose the 2-miler. And North Dakota State University campus is where we run. It's so beautiful. And I'm a big fan of Florida and all of our natural resources, but the grass is really super green. I don't know what kind of grass they got going on there in North Dakota. I guess it's hardy grass that can survive the snow, the blizzards, the unbearable weight of the snow for months on end, but it's just so beautiful and tidy. And they have bisons all over because they are the bisons. So that was really lovely. Now, I didn't get to eat much that day or almost anything because my flights were back to back to back. I had to keep running to my next gate and I didn't get food and the hotel didn't have food. So, and it was hot. And so I only did the 2-mile loop, but halfway through the 2nd mile, I was like, Froda, I don't feel so good. I did. I was succumbing to the heat. So we walked instead of running and that was just fine. But we got to the sports bar and it was fantastic. Just fun. Beer, and I had French fries, light beer, of course. And then they gave me the microphone, and I talked a little bit, and thankfully people seemed to enjoy that. But when I was done, they brought out birthday cake because last week was my birthday, and not just one, they brought 2 birthday cakes out, which was so sweet. And they sang happy birthday, and they had gifts for me. And Froda's so sweet. He's from Norway, and so my gifts were some Norwegian pop because it's not soda up there, it's pop, and cookies from IKEA, and then there were Norwegian chocolates and a card signed by everybody. It was just all very, very meaningful, and what a warm welcome, right? You show up, and I feel very fortunate to come to each town. Of course, I'm hired to come to each town and do my job, but the fact that I get to make genuine friends and they're so nice to me was very sweet. So we had a lot of fun. And there was a lot of beers, cheers, and we hung out there till I think almost 10 o'clock that night. And there was Stacy and Melissa and Kit and Mitch and Jeff and Jimmy B and Jacqueline Seltzer, one of my hotties, one of my Fitzness fiends from New York. I've never met her in person, but I finally got to see her. And Arnie, just the whole Fargo crew, Donna and Lily came out. It was wonderful. And again, 2 freaking birthday cakes. I'm sure that was because we had to feed so many people, but you want to make a girl feel special. That was exactly how to do it. So thank you, Fargo. What a wonderful kickstart to my weekend. So the next day, lunch with Donna, one of my besties. She was Mark's girlfriend. And then the Friday night 5K, which is the Mark Knutson 80s themed Friday night 5K. And I really like night races. I tend to screw up by saying good morning to everybody because most races are in the morning. So the second I show up at a start line, I start saying, good morning, which makes me look like a real doofus at 5:45 p.m. But we had almost 3,000 athletes for the 5K, which is a really good size 5K. In fact, I'd say it's big. I mean, of course, there's bigger, but 3,000 is a lot of people. And that's in a new course. It's in Minnesota at Concordia College. So if you go do the Essential Health Fargo Marathon weekend, you get to run in Minnesota and Fargo. So for some of you who are trying to do something in 50 states, of course, it's just a 5K in Minnesota, but checks off Minnesota. It's just so fun. Now, not as many people dressed up in 80s theme as I would have liked. I really like it when people dress up. We had some of that. I think last year we had a lot more. So it was just kind of me and maybe a few others. And outfits. And do I feel like a nerd being one of the only ones dressed up? Nope, I don't. I don't have any regrets over for one day wearing a fishnet t-shirt over my tank top and all the gummy bracelets. Do you remember gummy bracelets? And you'd wear 50 on each arm. I remember one of my teachers would sell them to us. I mean, I was so little, but my teacher would charge like a quarter a gummy bracelet, and every day I'd show up and buy a gummy. So it was nice to wear some gummies, and I had the good ones not the good ones, but I had the ones I wanted to wear on my left. I put the other gummies on my right arm, and then I gave them to people. I was like, you need a gummy. And so they seemed to like that. But it was a warm night. I think when I yelled go, it was about 85 degrees. And so it's interesting. So many people train for speed, right? They're training to go the distance or run the whole way, or maybe go faster than they had been before. And there I am on the microphone saying, okay, I want everybody to go slow. Go slower than you normally do. Drink, but go slow, just because heat exhaustion is a real threat. And we do have people drop, right? And I mean, I don't get to see what happens on the course because I'm not there, but I know that people they will will themselves across the finish line and then go down. And I hate seeing it. And often I'm out on foot on a finish line shoot, and it's important to me to catch people. And I do catch a lot of people. It's as a fitness professional, and this is one of the things where when I was 15 and I started teaching and I got my certification, one of the things they did that was pretty good during the certification process is they taught me how to look to see if people were doing, if you're teaching a class, you want to be able to monitor your students to make sure they're okay. So you look for a glazed look in their eye. Maybe they're super red. Maybe they're not red at all. Maybe they're super white. Maybe their lips are turning white. There was a guy who came across with white lips. I was not pleased about that. But yeah, we had quite a few people who did not heed my warning that went too fast and they needed to be caught. And, there I am on the microphone shouting medics. And of course the medics would come and we took good care of everybody. But it's interesting when the heat comes, how, I'm sure all race professionals have to swing into a different gear in order to be able to protect everybody. And, of course, if people would have heeded my warning by going slower, perhaps they wouldn't have put themselves in that position. But, you get carried away and it's exciting and fun and there's music in the crowds and people are cheering for you. And, maybe sometimes you just don't know you're going downhill. So that happened. But we also had a lot of people who managed themselves just fine. In fact, the great majority of our athletes managed themselves to perfection, and it was just fun, happy. I got to do lots of finish line runs with friends and hugs. And we have a group, CCRI. I can't remember what it stands for, but it's a group that cares for folks with mental disabilities or mental challenges. And there's probably 100 of them come out. It's the they're not patients. I don't know, the folks with the mental challenges, and then their team of their support system, and they all wear the matching shirts. And it's really inspiring to see them come out. And I could be wrong. I believe they get discounted or free registration, which is just meaningful. We want everybody to participate, right? I don't like the idea of anybody sitting at home saying, I can't participate. There's no place for me. Well, yeah, there is. I mean, if your body's not working, we have push REMs, we have hand cycles, we have an opportunity for you to use your upper body. If your lower body doesn't work, we have chariots where you can actually be on the course with someone just pushing you in a racing chariot. So let's say your body won't go at all. Okay, you can still be part of the show. I remember this wonderful woman, Casey, aka Ganna, in Standing Stone Marathon in Pennsylvania. And she had ALS. She was in the final stages of ALS, so her body wouldn't move at all. But her family pushed her in a racing chariot. It was awesome. And she got to be a part of our race weekend. And she was the engine pushing her son and her granddaughter through that half marathon. So anyways, that's a physical challenge part. But then there's folks who you wouldn't imagine, maybe someone with Downs is going to do a race. And yeah, they do. I mean, we have, depending on the level of athletic ability, we have like my friend Caleb, He's my little buddy. I think he's 17. He's in Jacksonville, and he does both triathlon and endurance races alone. He doesn't need support system. He just goes out and does his races. He's a quality athlete, better than many, probably better than me. Caleb's an incredible runner, and he can cycle and swim too. And then there's some folks who need the support, right? They need some real hand holding help, and it's just magical. I hate to play favorites, but I have full respect for our speedsters. It's the back of the pack. It's the strugglers. It's the gritty people. Those are the ones that just steal my heart at every start and every finish line. And that's been going on in Fargo for a very long time. So we had a lot of fun. Of course, we took some time to remember Mark at the start line. And I feel like he's just running along with all of those athletes because he created, this is the thing. When you go to a race, know that it was likely created by some guy or some gal in town who loved running, right? They loved being a runner. They loved exercise. They loved going to races. And then they eventually thought, gosh, I wish we had something like this in my hometown, or a different version of a race here in my hometown. And so there are people who love the sport. They love their fellow runners, and they wanted to create something for their community. And so, let's say maybe you show up at a race and things don't go exactly as planned. Please don't rip your race director or race organizer apart, because their intentions were good, right? Maybe they missed the mark, and there's something you could share with them to enlighten them on how they can do better in the future. But they're normally these just people who really cared about running and cared about you. They wanted to create something for you. And Mark Knudsen did that to the nth degree. And he was that guy. And so he's left this legacy for us. It's the North Star in Fargo. And I know that he's proud. I don't really understand what happens when you die. And I don't understand all of those things, but in my mind, he's really proud. He's still really excited to see people line up at his Fargo start lines and cross those finish lines. So it's good times. It's good times. So we did that. Now, last year when I left the Friday night 5K, I tried to get an Uber home and I couldn't. Apparently, Uber wasn't able to cross state lines. I was staying in Fargo, working in Minnesota, and there were no Ubers or Lyfts that would drive me into Minnesota. So I got stuck roaming around Concordia College with the turkeys, actual turkeys, the kinds that look like Thanksgiving turkeys, trying to figure out how the hell I was going to get back. So I eventually called my friend Donna, and she happened to be around and came to pick me up. But this year I planned in advance. Tim Patton, you've heard his name before. I booked him. He came into Fargo to try to PR and Boston qualify, and he had a rental car. And I was like, Tim, would you please drive me to the 5K? Will you please drive me away from the 5K? And he did. So I didn't have to wander with the turkeys, but we went to pizza. Froda joined us. It was a nice, fun evening. Went to bed at 10 o'clock, and then, alarm goes off for me at 4 a.m. and off to our start line. Now, last year, people were really kind of ticked that we weren't starting and finishing in the Fargo Dome. Now, I agree. That was a very special element of this race weekend. But once we got out to the start and finish line, I thought, okay, well, this is still nice, because almost all of our other start and finish lines are outside, and they're great. I like being outside. It's wonderful. And so it wasn't the dome, but it was still wonderful. And so last year, people were kind of cranky about that. Last year, people were kind of cranky about the swag. Mark had a long history of providing really cool shirts and jackets and bags. This year, I thought everything was fantastic. Nobody seemed to be complaining about the absence of the dome from the actual dome. We were right next to the dome, but we weren't in it. I didn't hear any complaints anymore. People seemed to get that out of their system last year. And then the swag was pretty sweet. I'm actually wearing a jacket. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's kind of a quilted material. This is what the marathoners got. It's got a nice hood, and it's fuzzy, and it's unique. I've never seen one like this for a race before, but really cozy. And yeah, most everybody loved it. I heard one person saying something neat about it the other day on Instagram. I was like, really? What's your problem? Like, maybe it's not your favorite style, but I think it's pretty good and pretty clever. So Ventures, who has purchased the Essential Health Fargo Marathon, I thought they did a great job. The medals were really beautiful. They were heavy. The ribbons were fantastic. The the challenge medal. The challenge is called the Go Far Challenge. I mean, there's a lot of play on words when you're in Fargo. We used to have the Furgo race, and anyways, you go far in Fargo. But yeah, they really stepped it up, and everything looks wonderful. So I hope they're very proud of themselves. I think last year there was complaints about not enough porta potties. I saw plenty of porta potties. So yeah, it was nice to come away from race weekend and just hear happy, 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 joy, joy, joy. People had a fun time, and I did too. So we had just about 7,000 athletes on Saturday morning. That's the marathon, the half marathon, and the 10K, and which are all great distances. I mean, Mark really he did a smart job when he built these races out, because you wait while you're closing down streets. Okay, well, let's include some other people. Maybe they don't want to go 26.2. They want to go half. Great. We're including so many more people by cutting that distance in half. And oh, you know what? Let's cut the distance in half again and include some folks to do 6.2 miles to 10K. And it just, there's something for everybody during the race weekend. And so I'm out there. I get on my start line stage, which is high up. They've got a nice platform for me. I've got Livewire, which is one of the most incredible sound and video production companies in America, right there in Fargo, led by Kent Kolstad, who I adore. I've worked with him a million times via Wonder Woman and Batman. It's just, I know when I get there, people aren't going to have a hard time hearing me. There's going to be no disconnect. There's going to be plenty of speakers going this way and that way. So I have the capacity to communicate not only the fun stuff, but the safety stuff with our athletes and our spectators. So that's always just a big relief to know that that's something I don't have to worry about when I'm there. But people start gathering, and, they just were happy. They showed up and they were pleasant and upbeat. People were excited to be there. We have a huge conglomerate of 50 staters. So if you're unfamiliar, there's a trend where people they set their goal to run maybe a full marathon in all 50 states, or a half marathon, or a 5K, or just some sort of distance, right? But what I love about that, especially as a fitness expert, is it's this incredible commitment to staying fit. I mean, if you're going to continuously run at least 50 states, it's going to take you the course of several years. You're committed to to maintaining a certain level of fitness, right? Either you're going to be in marathon shape for that whole time. Maybe it takes you 3 years. Maybe it takes you 20 years. But what a commitment to your health. And then the commitment to travel and adventure and seeing things you may not have seen before. I mean, how many people are going to South Dakota for vacation? I don't know. Or North Dakota. But the 50 staters will definitely go to South Dakota and North Dakota and Arkansas and Wyoming and Mississippi, and they'll go to Hawaii and Alaska too. And so it's great. And so we have so many 50 staters in North Dakota because it is the premier event weekend in that state. I believe there's a Bismarck marathon. I don't know much about it. I've not heard anything about it. I believe there's a Bismarck. I'm sure it's fantastic, but Fargo is the big deal, right? Especially if you want to do the big deal in each state, Fargo is definitely the big deal. So we have hordes and hordes of people that show up to do 50 states. And it's a cool crew, all ages, all backgrounds. There's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Now, Fargo itself has a very Scandinavian population. So it's just very interesting to me when I show up in a location, the words I have to pronounce, the last names I have to pronounce. So if I'm in California, there's a lot of Asian, there's a lot of Latin names, Hispanic names, I should say, Russians. In northern Buffalo, there's a bunch of Polish last names, Germans. In Detroit, I certainly get a bunch of Indian names. Same thing for Savannah, Atlanta area. So anyways, it's regional, right? So we get a lot of Carlstons. We get a lot of Carlstons and Johanssons, and it's like Fatherstatter. Anyways, there's some big names, and it sounds like half the community is a Carlson, so that's a Johansson. Yeah, Fargo, fantastic. So we lined everybody up in 3 different groups. We started the marathon at 7 a.m. They were fun. They were rowdy. had the half marathoners line up and start at 7:15 in a completely separate wave. And then at 7:45 or 7:40, we had the 10K athletes line up, and I yelled go for them individually. But it's very funny when there's 3 different distances. You have to warn people, hey, if they're doing the half marathon, don't line up now. Don't line up with these full marathoners because you're going to have a very long day. So there's this separation. Please don't come in the start line right now, or you're going to go a distance you have not prepared for. You definitely don't want 10K people showing up in the full marathon start line or whatever. So that's kind of fun and funny. But yeah, everybody was in great spirits. And there's just me on the microphone, right? And so I talk about the scripted items, which are plugging our sponsors and where the porta potties are and so forth. But then we just have a lot of time to get and I end up just rambling. Sometimes I think it's productive rambling, but sometimes I'm sitting up thinking, is anybody listening and do they care? Am I annoying them with my gibberish or my stories or whatever's going on? But they seemed to be quite appreciative of my yammering at the start line. But what I can tell you is after the race in town later, when I went to dinner, there were so many people that came up and said, oh my God, thank you for saying whatever. Or they would specifically call out when you were talking about this. Oh, it took my mind off of the stress of running the full. And I really liked it when you said that. And so everybody had their own little piece of my yammering that they enjoyed, but it's nice. It's nice. They could hear me because Livewire is so awesome, but yeah, it's good feedback because that's my job. It's not to engage and inform, but also to entertain. And you hope somebody likes what I'm saying, but yeah, a lot of quality feedback and a lot of very specifics in Fargo. I like when you said XYZ. Okay, good. So I keep up with the nonsense. For sure. And we will be right back.
Are you looking for the perfect gift for a loved one battling cancer? The Cancer Comeback Series by Fitz offers hope, inspiration, and practical guidance. With Your Healthy Cancer Comeback, My Noisy Cancer Comeback, and the Healthy Cancer Comeback Journal. These books are a lifeline for all patients and survivors. Right now, you can order autographed copies at a special discount. Show your support and help a loved one go from sick to strong. Visit Fitzness.com today. That's Fitzness.com. Fitzness.com.
We're back. So yeah, we had a blast. Everyone came through the finish line. Happy to. I had to give the heat warnings again. I spent all morning saying, please don't PR. Please go slower than you had planned. And it was cooler in the morning. So if you did the 10K, PRing wasn't a bad thing. If you did the half marathon, PRing was less of a bad thing. But for some of the full marathoners, I was pretty concerned. But they did great. We had our med tent was pretty busy. I had a few guys where, I have the best seat in the house. And so fun is always on my agenda. And the business of running the race is always on my agenda. But runner safety, protecting every athlete, making sure everybody gets across the finish line safely is really paramount to me. And so I see it and I end up I run to those people because I want to help. I had a little bit of a loop to do to get down my stairs, around the stage, through the little crack in the finish line to run to some of the athletes. One guy, another female she looped her shoulder under his left side. So I ran and grabbed him, got under his right side. And, I have the pleasure of being able to call for medics. And our medical team was fantastic from Essential Health, our title sponsor. They had so many folks out there, but it also is a real important deal for me to help athletes get across the finish line on foot if they can. So a few years ago, I was announcing the Buffalo Marathon and there was a woman who started to go down. I happened to be standing very close to her. I was out in the finish line chute. So I got her and I called for medics. And I believe it was actually the race director, but she could have gone the extra 15, 20 yards and made it across the finish line on foot with my assistance or someone's assistance. Instead, someone picked her up and then just carried her like a baby across the finish line. And then I have felt guilty ever since for allowing that to happen because it's important to us. You go 26 miles or 13 miles, whatever it is, to get across that finish line even partially supporting yourself, that makes you feel like you completed the task. And so she was grabbed and she was carried off, and I didn't intervene. And maybe they would have said, "Shut up, you're not the race director, or you're not the medical, go away." But I really feel like I let her down by not stopping that, because she could have. And so I called for medics to help one of the guys, and I had already had one arm looped under him. There was another woman on the other side, and we were getting him across. He was pretty limp, but he was moving his feet across. And I was telling him the whole time, "You are doing this. You get full credit for your marathon. You were doing this on your own legs." He was like, "Good, good, good." He was very grateful for that. But I had to shoo the medics away. And I was just like, "Hey guys, you can get him at the finish line. Have a chair right there." And so we did. We got him across the finish line, and then got him sat in the chair. They took him to the tent. I'm sure they gave him IV fluids, and I'm sure he recovered pretty quickly. There was a couple of others in a similar position, but yeah, it's time and experience. You start saying, okay, how do we best serve these athletes? It's probably not carrying them like a baby across the finish line if they can do something to get themselves across the finish line. And it's an extra 40 seconds. If somebody just drops out and they're falling out, fine, let's get them in a gurney and take them away. But that's often not the scenario. And so the next guy, I'm standing on the stage and I see him, and he gets 20 yards from the finish line, and his face goes, and he bends over, and I know the faces, right? So I know he's got a cramp. So I run down. I don't even call for medics. I just go down to get him, and he's buckled over and he can't move. His calf is just seizing up. So I get to him. I say, "I'm going to grab my shoulders." So he holds onto my shoulders, and I took that calf and I start just squeezing. He's shouting. He's like, "Ah!" Said, "It's going to be okay. Just hang in there with me. We'll get it to relax." So I keep just squeezing his sweaty calf until he can breathe, and then finally get up and he can start running again. But he's running sideways. It's kind of like a side trot skippy thing. And I just ran alongside of him in case his leg freaked out again. But at that point I was like, "Medics, get a chair at the finish line." And they were able to gather him up after he crossed. But it was very, very cute, the interaction. He's like, "My calf." I was like, I got it. I'm going to squeeze. And he was just shouting, and it all worked out. So that was very fun. Some other folks worth mentioning, Anne Emas. So her and her daughter, Emas, it's Emaus. So Emas, I think. I'm sorry, Anne, I know I'm butchering it, but I met her and her daughter, Kalina Grace. Actually, I've met them before, but Anne's pretty special. Her husband passed away 5 years ago, and he was an organ donor. And so he got to save several other lives with his. And so she runs for him. She runs for herself. She runs simply not to die of a broken heart. That was her commitment, is instead of just dying of sadness, she was going to keep moving and pursue athletic adventure. And yeah, it's just really heartening to see people make really good decisions, because sometimes, especially a death of someone in the family, can break you, right? She chose not to be broken. Yes, she's sad. Yes, she grieves, but this didn't break her. In fact, it seems to have made her stronger. So I love her commitment to her health and her heart by continuing to run. So she did Fargo Marathon for him and for her, and her daughter Kalina was so proud. She kept running up, "My mom's coming. Don't forget." I said, I got it. I tell her, and that's a great opportunity for me to tell the tale to the spectators and everybody around her. Hopefully it plants the seed that if they're ever in a quandary or a difficult position, that they do something positive with it as well. And there's another guy, Chuckaroo 26.2. Chuck's run many, I think most of the Essential Health Fargo marathons so far, but he told me before the race, he said that his granddaughter was running, and what I hadn't known previously is his son Kyle had died. I don't know how, probably wasn't my business, but Chuckaroo's son Kyle had passed, which, as you can imagine, as a parent, losing a child has got to be the worst thing that could ever happen to you. So Chuckaroo likes to run for Kyle, but Kyle's daughter, Charlie, Chuck's granddaughter was also running her first half marathon that day. And so Chuck, before the race, he gave me a wristband, and one of those rubber wristbands with his son's information on it. And, it was just nice to celebrate them. And when Charlie came through the finish line, I was telling her how proud her dad would have been. And so that was very meaningful to them. And I'm not telling you this because it's a pat on my back. All I did was say words. So there was no heroics here, but it's special to see other people recouping, right? For them making lemonade, taking a terrible situation and saying, okay, I can and will move forward. And they do. All right. Another wonderful team I met them before the 5K, but they ran, I believe, the half marathon on Saturday. It was a mother-daughter team. I don't remember their names, but mom had just lost 90 pounds this year, and her daughter lost 80 pounds. And they did the 5K together and the half marathon. And what an incredible way to upgrade your family, right? The family tree, they just took it in a completely different direction. Instead of being satisfied with being obese, the two of them, they committed together. They've utilized teamwork. They had a plan. They stuck to it. And now they're making memories because they're so fit. And so I hope if you're overweight or out of shape in any regard, something like that will inspire you to take action, because it's totally possible. Whatever situation you're in, if you want to get better, it's totally possible. And yeah, you just have to do the work. You got to make the commitment, have a plan, and force it every single day. And that's what this mother-daughter team did. And I just think what a cool thing to do together with a parent and a child. And, instead of one of them dropping dead at 50 or 60, hopefully they're going to be together when they're 70 and 90, right? Because they've earned that. They've earned that, right? So yeah, health matters. And to change your family tree, so great. I'm guessing the daughter, I don't know if the daughter is already a mom. She looked pretty young, but, hopefully when she has kids, she'll raise a fit family and she'll choose a healthy husband. All of those things go together. So yeah, that was a really cool, just experience. I love meeting the people. And so, yeah, if you go to a race, you should meet some of the people. You'll hear some fantastic story. Okay. So this is a couple of nonsense things. When the first guy, as I was telling you, the one that I escorted across the finish line, I ran down. And then when I came up to my stage, my hand was covered in blood. And I thought, he must have been bleeding. And I also thought, he was bleeding. And now I have my hand covered in his blood. So I take a bottle of water and I pour it over my hand. And I put antibacterial gel in my hands to try to disinfect, which hurt like a mother. I just want you to know there was lots of cursing going on. Not on the microphone, just privately. And then I start working in, I look down, my hand's covered in blood again. I was so relieved to find it was my blood. I was like, wow, yay, it was me that was bleeding. So in some way, I don't know if I cut my hand on him or on the other lady helping him up, or if I touched something at the finish line, because I sped through pretty quickly. But yeah, I pulled a chunk out of my middle finger. Ow. And I was delighted. I was delighted that it was my own blood. What a treat. And then finished off the race. We may be a few people coming through the finish line, but our kids race was at 2:30. And so the kids race used to be on Thursday night. Now the kids race is at the end of the marathon. And that suits me just fine, because my energy probably increases towards the end of the day. I get so excited about our final finisher. So it was a wonderful way to expel whatever I had left, and hundreds of cuties from 1 to about 10, I would say. And so many of their parents ran. There was a mile loop and a half-mile loop, and they were just as cute as it gets. And so I'm proud to say I did not kiss any of the children, which would have been wildly inappropriate. I did not eat any of the children. And I did not steal any of the children and bring them home with me. So, congratulations, Fitz Kohler, from not doing those things, because my gut instincts say, go grab one. They're so cute. Go take home a baby. I did offer a few of the people, if they had twins, I was like, hey, listen, I could take one of those off of your hands, but I had no takers. But it was great fun. So if you come to Fargo and you have children, just bring them along. Bring them along. Okay, so we finish up. I get back to my hotel at about 3:30, and one would think, I was super tired after being up doing those things all day. And I was kind of tired, but I had big plans. I want you to know that there were big, big plans. Sometimes I'm somewhere on a race weekend and I don't know anybody really. And so I just go back to my hotel and get on my computer and dawdle or go to sleep. That's one of those things. I do spend a lot of time alone on the road, which is just fine, but it is a special treat for me when I have a friend in any of the areas where I go. So maybe we could have lunch or dinner or go for a walk or whatever, right? But in Fargo, I don't have that problem. I've got friends galore. So mind you, I get to my hotel room at 3:30. I have to fly out of Fargo at 5 a.m. the next morning. So it's a limited window and a lot of stuff to do. And my alarm clock will be set for 3 a.m. So it's already 3:30. I haven't eaten dinner or done anything. And then I got to wake up the next morning at 3. So, okay, we're going to make this happen. What I do, I sit down for 20 minutes, rest, and then I get up and I start packing because I want all my crap to be ready. So when I wake up in the morning, I don't have to pack. And when I get to a hotel, I open my luggage and then one would think there's some sort of ejection button or a detonator and it just goes kapow. And there's stuff all over the place. But you know what? It's my room. I can do whatever the hell I want with it. So I don't need my mom picking on me, telling me you made a mess and you left your stuff here. BS. I leave my makeup all over the bathroom counter. And then I have my clothes here and there because I have the running shoes and then I have the announcing stuff. And then I have clothes for doing something nice. Anyways, boom, my luggage explodes. So I know that I have to kind of pull it together so I don't have to do that at 2:30 or 3 in the morning. So we do that. And then at 6:30, Tim Patton comes to pick me up. Now I'm going to back up because I forgot to mention Tim Patton's marathon finished. So I'm going to recap because if you've listened to the show, you've heard about Tim Patton, but I met him I met him at Buffalo, but I really met him, I think, where we got to know each other at Fargo Marathon 21, I believe. And super sweet man. He's a retired police sergeant from Cleveland, and he's a very talented athlete. In fact, we have figured out that every single time, except for one, when he wasn't trying, every single time he's run my races, he's PR'd. That means he's run the fastest he's ever run at that distance. So when he ran the Fargo half marathon in 21, he PR'd. He then came to see me at the Coast Guard Marathon in North Carolina, ran the marathon. He PR'd. He then showed up. I'm probably missing some, but he's then showed up to the Detroit Free Press trying to qualify for the Boston Marathon. PR'd, where I was announcing, and he PR'd and made it, but then they changed the qualifying time for Boston, and he did not make it. And then, so where else? Then he ran Big Sur, and he didn't even try to PR. But then he ran Rocket City Marathon. He PR'd. But then his qualifying time, he qualified for Boston, but then Boston says, hey, yeah, you met the qualifying time, but you still didn't make it because there were people faster. They kind of move the finish. They definitely move the finish line in Boston, and they're accommodating the speedsters. So it's what they have to do. But Tim came into this weekend saying, I want to run 3 hour, 25 minutes. So the cutoff time for Boston for his age group is 3:30. And so you know what? He shows up. I just have full faith. He's going to qualify. He's just going to do it. He's a very committed athlete and he trains properly. And whenever he says he's going to PR, I believe him because he always does. And so the night before he ran the 5K, he was supposed to run more slow, but he didn't. He came in, he was supposed to be slower than 30 minutes and he finished at like 25. So I was like, hey, dummy, hey, dummy, you were supposed to run slower, but that's Tim for you. So anyways, he shows up and we say hello on marathon morning and I just wish him well. And I see him take off with the lead of the pack. And his plan was to run with the pacer, the 3:30 pacer, and then eventually chase down the 3:20 pacer. Turns out there were no pacers in that time frame. So he didn't even have a pacer, but he leaves pretty much a few seconds after I yell go. So I can watch the marathon time to see if he's coming in on time. Now it's really hard to do the math for somebody who started in wave C and they're 7.5 minutes behind. But with Tim, I know that once that clock strikes 3:25, he should be there. And so I start looking for him around that time. And there are hundreds of spectators. And so I start telling them, hey, I got a friend out there who's trying to qualify for the Boston Marathon. Let's all keep an eye out for Tim. So the 3:25 goes by. Now, mind you, he really just needs 3:30. But 3:25 goes by, and I'm still welcoming athletes, but I've got my eye out for him. I got my eye on. It's a very long finish line shoot. It goes back at least a quarter mile, if not further. And then finally, I see him coming. I tell him, everybody, I was like, there he is. There's my friend. He's got on the orange shorts and the black tank top, and he's got the big muscles and the bald head. And everybody goes crazy for Tim Patton. And he has a really grand, happy finish, waving his arms around, blowing kisses, clapping. And he finished at 3:26.15. So again, that Boston qualifier, that new finish line they've set is 3:30. I'm desperately hoping beating that qualifying time by 3 minutes, 45 seconds is enough to get him in, because he really wants it. And boy, he works hard. So congratulations, Tim. Again, so proud of you. And then he came up to visit me. Once he crossed the finish line, I was like, Tim, go get your snack, get your drink. This is all on the microphone. Everybody can hear it. And then come see me. So eventually he does. But in order to see me, he's got to walk up this flight of stairs, which is hilarious. It's actually, I don't wish that on my friends, but I do definitely giggle at their expense when they have to climb stairs to see me. And then even funnier, watching them go down the stairs after. It's, you know what, I'm going to take the giggles where I can get them. And I've been that person getting off of a bus after a half marathon or whatever. I know it's torture, but very funny as well. Funny stuff. So back to my hotel, packed up, ready. Tim picks me up at 6:30. We're going to go to dinner. We went to dinner and we had a nice meal, and some friends started to accrue. And then the game plan was to go over to Dempsey's. Dempsey's is a cool place in Fargo. I've been there before. They do karaoke. And so we went over to Dempsey's. There was maybe about 10 of us for some beer. Hooray for beer, right? I don't drink a whole bunch, but on occasion when I do, it makes me very, very happy. And yeah, so we were there, about 10 of us, Mitch and Jeff and Froda, and some girls that joined us, some very fun / drunk girls, Beth and Nicole. Hi, if you're listening. I liked getting to know them. And so karaoke is always great, right? You just never know what you're going to get. Some people are terrible. They sing god awful, and that's really fun. And then there's some people that surprise you with a beautiful voice. And there were some guys rapping Beastie Boys stuff. It was super good. So anyways, a little bit of karaoke. But Froda, before I got to Fargo, he had said, hey, do you want to go dancing? He knows I dance. I do real dancing, ballroom dancing. I was like, yeah. And he said, there's a live band at the VFW. And so if you've ever been to a VFW, you know they're all kind of wood, and there's always guys in like leather vests at the bar and a handlebar mustache and some cool old vets, right? So after Dempsey's, gosh, it was after 11 o'clock. Mind you, my alarm clock is set for 3 a.m. So we leave Dempsey's probably after 11, head over to the VFW. And when Frodo says, let's dance, I don't really know what I'm going to get. I'm not sure what's going to happen. Holy hell, Froda can dance. Both of Froda's parents were professional dance instructors. And so, wow, he could lead like a total boss. And we had so much fun. I mean, what a privilege to dance with someone who's a really good dancer. We did East Coast swing and West Coast swing and two-step, and some others. I loved it. I ended up kicking off my sandals. Froda had me doing backflips on the dance floor, probably 10 backflips throughout the night. Just the best time ever. If you do not know how to dance with a partner, you have to go learn. It is so much more exciting and interesting and fun than just, shaking your booty at each other and doing the sprinkler and the dental floss, whatever the cool kids are doing right now. Go learn how to dance with a partner, because, the clock struck midnight. And if I went to sleep at midnight, I would officially have 3 hours to sleep. I did that math and I thought, F it, this is worth sticking around for. And so we just kept dancing until the band stopped playing, which I believe was at 12:30. So just a blast. All of us had a great time, and just a really exciting way to put the cherry on top of a marathon weekend and I appreciate having real friends there. And there's a good chance I'll be back there in October. So I'll reveal that information when it becomes available. But what a blast. What an absolute blast. I am such a privileged, blessed. I hate the word privilege. Too many people are throwing it around in such a jerk way. I feel blessed to do the work that I love. Of course, I chose that route, but to make so many wonderful friends. I mean, they threw me a freaking birthday party and gave me presents, which makes no sense that they should do that. They don't have to do that for me. My job is come into town and take care of everybody else, but they did. And so Fargo definitely makes me feel like home. Okay, so I get on the plane at 4:15. That's my boarding time. And thankfully, everything went on time all the way to Fargo, all the way home. Go from Fargo to Minneapolis. I get off the plane. I literally walk 2 gates over, and that's another plane waiting for me. Now, I am Diamond Medallion status with Delta Airlines. So you get privileges as you fly more, right? They're like, oh, it's a better customer. Let's bump her. I get bumped to first class a whole heck of a lot. And so I was in first class, but I get off my plane. It's the Minneapolis to Atlanta plane. I get off, and usually there are people standing in the jetway that are there to take folks who need some physical support. They have wheelchairs and they push people across the airport. But I get off and I see this man holding my cell phone facing forward, and it says Fitz Kohler. And I go, that's me. What do you need? And he goes, Fitz, it's such a privilege to have you as a Diamond Medallion member. I would like to drive you to your next gate. I'm like, what? He said, yes, if you come with me, I will drive you there. So instead of going into the airport, into the terminal, going across Terminal E, getting on the train, or walking down below in the basement and going up to Terminal C to my gate, I get downstairs. Arturo is his name. And he's got this Porsche SUV, and he puts me in it and drives me to my next gate. It was the craziest thing ever. It was such a lovely surprise. And of course, I did a little video. It's on Instagram. If you haven't seen it, go to Fitzness, that Instagram. You could see this is such a VIP experience, and they can only do it for so many people. They have 15 different Porsches that will take 15 different Delta loyal customers to their gate every 30 minutes. And so it was just really fun. And I liked it. I felt special, as Delta intended me to. And then he brought me to my airplane. And then he said, well, we can sit in the car until your plane starts boarding. So once it showed that the plane was boarding, he takes me up the stairwell, and they open the door, and I'm right at the entryway of my plane. And I'm the first person on the plane. I just sit down, and I'm back in first class, and the lady gives me a Diet Coke. And I just thought, wow, that was uptown. That was really, really uptown. So what a wonderful way to put the exclamation point on the Essential Health Fargo Marathon weekend. It was fantastic. I hope everybody had such a fabulous experience the way I did. It seemed as though people were happy. Again, last year I heard some complaints, things were different, but this year, whatever, the dust had settled. Last year was very emotionally difficult because of the loss of Mark. And for me, it felt like I was doing his funeral at the race. It was tough. It was a lot of crying. This year, less so, more celebrating Mark, celebrating each other, and people had settled into the changes that have been made since. So lots of fun, and I'm grateful for it. If you haven't been a part of that weekend before, I highly recommend it. And I hope I'm back next year to serve you all and make some more happy noise in Fargo. Oof-da, right? Okay, my communication tip for the show. This is a good one, I think. So says me, right? Think about what you say before you say it. If you have an important conversation coming up, or even if it's just on the fly, put some thought into your words, because they can be very meaningful. Your words can make you look very intelligent or kind of dumb. They can make you look very kind or kind of mean, sexy or not. So just think about your words before you open your mouth, especially if you have a conversation planned in advance. I think that could go a long way for everybody. And then song of the show, I really like this one. I'm adding it directly to my Spotify playlist. So go to Fitzness on Spotify. It's a free playlist, and you can basically work out or spend your life with my favorite music. But the artist is Renee Rapp, and the song is Leave Me Alone. And it's kind of my anthem right now. Leave Me Alone by Renee Rapp. It's really fun. It's a good upbeat. You could dance, you could lift weights, you could play basketball, whatever you want to do. But Leave Me Alone by Renee Rapp. And that is that. So thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you haven't done so, click subscribe, maybe leave a nice review. And if you have any questions, that's right, your big Qs, send them my way. Send them to me on Instagram or Facebook or at fitzness.com, and I will A them ASAP. All right. I love you all. Get to work. Bye, team. Mwah!
Hi, this is Rudy Novotny, the voice of America's Marathons. We all love how much running has benefited every aspect of our lives, so much so that most of us only wish we'd started sooner. Wouldn't it be wonderful to gift the opportunity to children of today? Well, you can. The Morning Mile is a before-school walking and running program that gives children a chance to start each day in an active way while enjoying fun, music, and friends. That's every child, every day. It's also supported by a wonderful system of rewards, which keeps students highly motivated and frequently congratulated. Created by our favorite fitness expert, Fitz Kohler, Morning Milers across the country have run over 2 million miles and are having greater success with academics, behavior, and sports because of it. The Morning Mile is free to the child, free to the school, and is inexpensively funded by businesses or generous individuals. Help more kids get moving in the morning by visiting morningmile.com. Champion the program at your favorite school or find out more about sponsorship opportunities. That's morningmile.com. Long may you run.